Hey everyone, so I'm filming this introduction on my own in the garage instead of with Sophie on the sofa because she's been really ill for the past couple of weeks. She had a really nasty flu, ended up coughing so much she broke a rib, poor girl. And she's still coughing, and whenever she coughs it's an immense amount of pain, so I hope you'll all wish her a speedy recovery. So it's just me this week. Having fixed the dent in the rear quarter panel last week, I've now tackled filling it in and painting it. Before we can use any filler, I first need to sand back this layer of primer, give the filler something to stick to. So that's got rid of a lot of that primer, but then we only put that on there just to try and stop any rust forming in the time between pulling the dent out and filling it in. So now it just needs to be filled. As you can probably see, the first round didn't go too well. I realised too late that I should have been shaping down rather than along. So I'm now just going to sand this back a bit and then try another coat, and hopefully that'll be finished. Right, so it's tomorrow now. Well, wait, no, that doesn't make sense. It's today, obviously, but a day has elapsed since the last bit of filler, because I didn't put enough hardener in, so it was taking ages to cure. So we're now 2 loads of filler, and it's still a little bit flat, so I'm hoping just one more layer, just to sort of give it a bit more of a rounded shape to follow the rest of the contour of the car, and it should be ready to sand down and paint. See, the problem with doing bodywork is there's so much waiting around, you know, you've got half an hour between each layer of filler, 10-15 minutes between each layer of paint, and a good half an hour between each paint stage. I do get a lot of tea breaks though. And I do like tea. So this coat of filler has now dried, and I'm hoping I can sand it back and get the right contour and we're ready to paint. Let's see. So overall I'm pretty happy with the result. It's filled in nicely, it's smooth, got the right kind of contour. I don't know if you can see on camera, but there are a couple of little pinholes. I'm going to try and pick up some of the filler specifically for doing that, get that on there, and then go to painting. And of course, this stuff also has a half-hour drying time. So I've sanded back the spot putty now. Didn't bother filming that as there's already enough footage of sanding on this episode. But as you can see, it's filled in all the pinholes really nicely. It's got a really nice smooth finish, ready for paint. I've also keyed the surface a bit further back just so we can get a good blend with the new paint, hopefully. But before we paint, first thing we need to do is clean up this mess. So now, finally ready to start painting, but first I need to mask up. Ah, awesome. And as much as I like Misty's colour, I don't want matching lungs, so I also need to mask up. Cool. I could really go for a cup of tea. Huh, amazing. I'm liking this power. So now, just need to paint it. Guess you only get 3 wishes. I have to do it by hand. Word of the day is warm, because apparently paint goes on better in the warm. So I've been running this little space heater while I did the masking up to try and warm the garage up a bit. And I'm also going to put the paints in some warm water to warm them up a bit first. So, funny story, I'm a fucking idiot. I was spending all that time setting up the cameras and warming up the paint and everything else that I completely forgot to actually prepare the surface that I'm painting, so I didn't sand it back, didn't do any paint prep, didn't use a tack cloth, So now there's little bits of hair and dust and what have you under the paint, so I'm going to have to sand that off and start again. So the primer's all on now and ready for the colour coat. To try and help blend the layers in, I've got some thick masking tape here that's only down on one side, so that should cause it to sort of fade out a bit as I spray. Luckily I've only really got a blend on two sides, as this side comes up against the boot and then under here is where the rear light goes, and in fact even this top side is underneath the spoiler, so that's not such a big deal. It's really this side I've got to worry about. So with each layer of colour I'm going to move these bits of tape back a bit to feather the edges a bit more, and if I need to I'll also get some cutting compound in just to really blend it before hitting it with a clear coat. So I'm pretty happy with the way the colours blended on. You can definitely see the edges of it, and it's slightly darker, but I think that's partly because we haven't got the clear coat on yet, so you can see the difference between the matte finish of the new paint and the gloss finish of the original paint. So now we're going to put the clear coat on and hopefully it'll all look good as new. So I let the clear coat dry overnight, and overall I'm pretty happy with the colour match, but the finish on the clear coat is a little bit dull, even though I really sprayed it on quite thick this time to try and get a glossy finish. I've read that you can fix this by sanding it out with a very fine grit paper and then buffing it with some cutting compound, so that's what I'm going to try now. Well, I was sceptical of how much difference sanding and T-cutting really could make, but actually, turns out you can polish a turd because it's come up really shiny. I mean, if you watch the reflection of the fluorescent light there, you can still see it in the new paint. It actually looks better in real life than on camera if you want to get a better angle. There you go. I mean, yeah, the paint job isn't perfect, and you can see a slight difference in the colour, but actually, here is under the spoiler, so that's the original colour that hasn't faded in the light. And that pretty much perfectly matches what I got sent. So the paint match was pretty good, it's just obviously the rest of Misty has faded a bit over the last 23 years. So for a first attempt at body repair, I'm pretty happy with how this has gone. All that's left to do now is put it all back together. And here we have the final product. I am really happy with how it turned out. Once the light and the spoiler was back on, it actually made it look even better. I've been told that these overhead fluorescent lights can really bring out any imperfections in paint, so actually it should look even better in natural light. There's only two things I'm not happy with. First, there's a little bit of the paint chipped off just here. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera. And second, I completely forgot that there's damage to this spoiler piece here, so I really should have filled and painted that at the same time. But I can have a go at that later. So there you go. I would certainly call that a success for first ever time doing this kind of bodywork. It went better than I ever could have expected and looks a million times better than it did. So where does that leave our budget? Well, we ended episode 6 on £499.94. We spent about £20 on the body fillers, tack cloth, sandpaper and cutting compound, and £24.98 on the paints. bringing our new total to £544.92. Hello.
I have a problem.
What's that?
A chunk of the wooden spoon has fallen off in the stew and I can't find it.
Okay, that is a problem. We may have to do that one.